Hello, welcome to episode 188 of the Book Binge for my final McCarthy review, or at least my final first time reading McCarthy review covering Blood Meridian, the final McCarthy novel that I had not read. So, over the course of the last year, it's kind of been a long time coming. I basically always planned for Blood Meridian to be the last McCarthy book that I read because it was the one that I was most scared of. But well, I mean, it's kind of hard to do an introduction for this one because I'm about to stir up a lot of stuff here. If you saw the thumbnail, you probably kind of have a guess at how I felt about this one. If you were one of my friends in Discord and you followed along with my McCarthy journey, generally speaking, I'm pretty sure you can guess how I felt about this one. So kind of let's just jump into reviewing the book because I think this one is going to go rather poorly no matter what I talk about or how, but I am going to start off with the good of Blood Meridian just like I always do because, well, there is a little bit of something that I did like about the book. The first few chapters of this thing are actually pretty great. I would say up through the first half of chapter 4 or so, this was looking like a 4-star book, so definitely the start to this was pretty great and kind of up there for McCarthy for me. I found the kid engaging and the shenanigans of the various different characters fascinating to follow in the early portions of the book. I also found the recruitment scene, we shall say, and everything surrounding that to be quite well done. I thought there were largely great character interactions, great seeds for discussion and thought, and great build-up of, well, what was to come in the book. So regardless of how I felt of the rest of the book, I definitely liked the way this started. I should also say there was at least one of the other characters through like the first half that I largely really liked, but basically all the rest of them I kind of forgot. I forget which one it was that I liked by name, so unfortunately that is that, and it's basically all of the inherent positives that I have to say for this, so definitely buckle up because I have some complaints to get through. For the bad of Blood Meridian, I'm going to be the guy that says literally everything else I did not like, basically anything after the first half of chapter 4 or so. By the time I finished chapter 4, I probably should have DNF'd this book. I'm not somebody who's ever really inclined to DNF. I only have one official DNF that I've ever done since started reading again like 3 years ago at this point, so that kind of says something when I say that I should have DNF'd this one. The rest of the book after the first half of chapter 4 just got worse and worse and worse for me. It got to be more boring as time went on. It got to be more repetitive as time went on. It got to be more disinteresting as time went on. So even though this thing started off with really great potential, it did not execute on any of that for me, to the degree that even the violence, which people call this like one of the most violent books they've ever read, I just was so unfazed by it. I did not find even any of the violence engaging. That is how little I found myself caring about Blood Meridian. If that does not say anything about how I felt on this book, I don't think anything will, unfortunately. Not even the philosophizing and other character work that is done in between the bouts of violence really works for me, because it ultimately just becomes a cycle of the book being repetitive, doing the same thing over and over again. Essentially, it becomes no point besides bloodshed, so I just found myself unfazed by said bloodshed. So it was just kind of one of those things. At no point does the story get back on track for me. Obviously, kind of implied this already. The so-called philosophy of the book is actually really garbage. I did not think any of it was particularly interesting or good, and unfortunately not even the prose on this one was good. A lot of people say that Blood Meridian is like some of the best writing that McCarthy has, and I don't really think I see it. I just found it largely really repetitive and dull. I might have been able to handle this book as a whole if the writing was as engaging as people seem to say or think that it is. Even if this prose was half as good as its reputation, I would have been fine with it. But unfortunately, this is just not good. By the time you read "they rode on" and that phrase 50,000 times every single chapter, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, why am I even reading this book anymore? I definitely felt that way by the halfway point. It just got to be really, really bad. And like the kid as a character who I really liked in the first few chapters of the book, he turned from really interesting at the start of the book into a canvas of nothing that just kind of becomes a tool through which McCarthy views the rest of the book, which I felt was very lame because the kid could have been a good and interesting character. Instead, he becomes a nothing burger of just watching the judge do heinous stuff and act like he's so intelligent when he's no smarter than a fifth grader. Literal fifth grade philosophy in this book. And the rest of the story overall is just absolutely worthless, in my opinion. The ending involving the kid and the judge and everything does nothing to redeem it. In fact, it made everything worse. It soured me on it even worse than any of the rest of the book before that could have done. And speaking of the judge, because I've been specifically avoiding him so far up to this point, the ugly is Judge Holden. I hate that I share a name with this piece of garbage. I don't even call him a piece of garbage because he is a piece of garbage based off of what he does in the book, but also because he is just a garbage character. He has the philosophy of a fifth grader who uses his supposed ostensible intelligence to manipulate a bunch of dummies and a bunch of crazy people, a bunch of people with no personal drive or potential into doing really heinous stuff. So he's just kind of a stupid middle school bully is basically all he does. He has this mental superiority over all of the rest of the characters. It's true, he's smarter than them, but like he's not actually that smart, and he uses that to bully them into doing really bad stuff, and none of it was compelling. Judge Holden is just very creepy with no redeemable qualities. He's not compelling in the least. Why is he naked all of the time in this book? Like, why is the kid just used as a canvas to find the judge randomly naked in a bunch of random situations for literally no reason except to be like this weird, creepy villain on the edge of the story? Like, I've not read a villain worse than Judge Holden, and I don't think I've ever will. He's awful. There's nothing about this character that is interesting or compelling or worth reading. Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men is a trillion times better, and maybe even better than that. Like, how is Holden from Blood Meridian considered a compelling character when Anton Chigurh exists? In Cormac McCarthy's catalog of books, there's no way this is the one that people are like, oh yeah, but that villain is so good. No, he's not. He's not actually that good. I've genuinely never been so dumbfounded by a character's or a book's reputation in my life. I don't understand how this is considered McCarthy's magnum opus. If you want McCarthy's magnum opus, do not read Blood Meridian, because it is not that. Very obviously, I shouldn't even have to do a recommendation portion for this book. I do not recommend Blood Meridian because it is absolute garbage. I would reread The Road 50 times in a row with nothing else in between, losing sleep, like keep me awake for weeks on end so that I can read the Road with my eyeballs 50 times in a row before I would consider reading Blood Meridian again. I hated this book. It's not even a case of don't take my word for it. Plenty of people like this book. I genuinely have no idea how people unironically think this is a good book. Even if it's not bad, it's boring and repetitive. There's nothing about this book after the first few chapters that are good. Like, yeah, that's basically it. And like, don't get me wrong, this is not necessarily to disparage people who do like Blood Meridian, because I frankly don't really care about other people's opinions that much. I just don't get it. I don't really get why Blood Meridian is so popular. I don't get why it has the reputation that it has. Like I said, even the violent reputation, just the violence didn't really faze me at all, so I don't really get that aspect of it. After chapter 4, I should have DNF'd this book. So really the only thing that I can say in favorable recommendation for Blood Meridian is if you're interested in giving it a shot, read through the first 4 chapters or so. If you really like those 4 chapters, consider going on. Like, it might be the case that the book is for you, but if you don't love this book at the end of chapter 4, and especially by the end of chapter 5, don't continue on, because it's not going to change your mind at any point over the course of the story. Obviously, you can make your own decisions, but I'm not going to touch this book again. I gave it 0.5 stars rounded up to 1 on Goodreads. That is how much I disliked it. I would give it 0 stars, but I did like the first few chapters a bit, and that's the only redeeming quality that this thing had. So yeah, that's basically the review. You can definitely give your dislikes to me down below if you want now, because you've watched through the video and heard me out about why I disliked the book. I would say check out literally any other McCarthy book over this one, but I would also say, before you give out your dislikes, even though you've probably already done that and clicked off by now, check out any of my other McCarthy reviews at this point for something more positive. Even my original review of The Road had more positivity than this one. I genuinely actually do like McCarthy. In fact, here in just a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a video ranking all of his books, and you'll see that I'm pretty sure there are more books above the average point than below the average point, and that kind of goes to show that I do like McCarthy. This book is just not the one for me. And on that note, like I said, I don't understand how Blood Meridian is considered McCarthy's magnum opus. If you want to read McCarthy's magnum opus, read The Passenger and Stella Maris. Those 2 books are phenomenal. I would definitely recommend those instead, and I will have a review for those actually going up this coming Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Scripted reviews for those ones because they had a huge impact on me, and I loved them. Blood Meridian is not where it's at. The Passenger and Stella Maris is definitely where it's at. But I'm going to get out of your face now. I probably have way more dislikes on this video than I have likes, just on account of how inflamingly mad I am at having wasted my time with this book, because I do feel like it was just a waste of time. After chapter 4, all of the rest of those hours I will never get back, and I'm mad about that. But if you happen to be interested in ever checking out another video on this channel again, I would appreciate it. Like I said, on Sunday I'm going to have reviews for The Passenger and Stella Maris, which I loved, so that's coming out. I have other McCarthy videos on this channel that are a lot more positive than this one. I have that ranking that's going to be coming out in a few weeks, where I talk about all of the books, and most of those are going to be in a more positive than negative light. So like, this is a fluke, basically. This is probably my only outright negative review that I've ever posted on the channel. Like, I'm sorry. If you are a fan of this book, I'm sorry. I wanted to like it, but I could not do it, and I apologize. Either way, I'll be back in the next video. I hope to see you there, but I assume there's probably a pretty good chance I won't. But thank you for watching. I'll be back in the next one regardless.